iCatholic Mobile is a 5G wireless provider dedicated to supporting your faith and values, offering unlimited talk and text, reliable data, and plans that support Catholic causes. A portion of every dollar helps sustain the mission of the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. With nationwide coverage, iCatholic Mobile connects you to what matters most. More information is available at iCatholicMobile.com.
iCatholic Mobile underwrites for the Station of the Cross.
Triumph of the Heart. Today on The Simple Truth, we consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong, chaste heart of St. Joseph. Our guest today is Anthony D'Ambrosio. He is the writer-director of the new film Triumph of the Heart, The Passion of St. Maximilian Kolbe. You can find more on this at triumphoftheheart.com, but we're going to give you a lot on it here today. You're in the right place to learn more. Anthony, great to have you with us on The Simple Truth. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Very excited to dive into this and to share this with the audience. But first, before we begin, do want to remind folks about iCatholic Mobile. It's the only Catholic mobile phone company in the U.S. today. When you subscribe to iCatholic Mobile, you do help fund the Station of the Cross. Check out iCatholic Mobile, iCatholicMobile.com. All right, let's just start off just by laying it out. This film is an absolute masterpiece. This is something that everybody is going to want to see. You are very foolish if you don't figure out how you're going to see this film and make it happen. And so I want to just start off before we even dive in with just the call to action. Opening weekend is September 12th and 13th, so everybody wants to mark that on their calendar. And can you share with us, Anthony, how can people see this movie and what can they do to help ensure that as many people as possible can see this movie?
Yeah, so this is the way that we're approaching this in every way is kind of punching Hollywood in the face a little bit and giving it a black eye. And one of those ways is that we're going around the normal studio system by allowing people to crowdfund screenings and then going and taking those crowdfunded screenings and doing buyouts. And what that means for you is that if you want to see the movie, the way to do it, you can't just wait for opening weekends because if we do that, then it likely won't come to your city or your local community. The way that we're doing this is we're allowing you to start a screening by buying about 5 tickets, putting in a theater near you that you'd like to do a screening at, and then sharing that screening page that you get after that with your friends. It's very simple. Once you sell about 80 tickets to that screening, it'll go online and we'll book it with the theater, and it'll be a beachhead for us of opening that movie in that theater in your city so that your community can see it. So if you'd like to see the movie, go to kolbemovie.com, look up your zip code, see what's going on around you. If somebody else has already started one, then pile in with them and help them to finish fundraising for that screening. And if not, then go ahead and start your own and start sharing it with your friends. We've got one more week left now in order to get these screens kind of committed. So that's the mission. We're calling everybody that starts one of these screenings part of the militia, Kolbe's militia, after the Militia Immaculata that he started to sort of bring forward the gospel in Poland during his lifetime.
Hey, all right. Triumphoftheheart.com is where you can go sign up for that. So the call to action is not waiting till opening weekend. The call to action is now. Go to triumphoftheheart.com and help make sure that this is going to be in your local area so that you can see it, others can see it. And again, you're going to want to see this movie on the big screen. I was blessed to be able to pre-screen it on the small screen of my laptop, a little perk of being able to do these interviews. But I was just absolutely blown away, far surpassing my expectations in every way. I think this is going to be a film that is going to be on our list right up there with The Passion of the Christ in terms of how well done this is. Just absolutely incredible. And yeah, I mean, you're going to fall in love even more with St. Maximilian Kolbe, which is to fall in love with him more is to fall in love with Jesus more as well, which is he's always pointing the way there. So there's so much here for us to love. And this is a great thing. We want to trumpet great things when they come along. It's not just bad news all the time. This is wonderful. This deserves to be supported. So whatever you can do to support this film, I want to encourage you to do so. Triumph triumphoftheheart.com. All right, Anthony, why don't you share with us a little bit on your own personal story that kind of leads up into the story of this film even happening?
Thank you for the platform, and thank you for the kind words. I don't think that we deserve to have made such a good movie, but God and St. Maximilian Kolbe really kind of gave us a lot of extra firepower, and it really is. I do believe that it is a masterpiece, and I'm really proud of it. But yeah, I think all of it really starts with my own journey as a Catholic. I grew up homeschool, conservative, very well formed. My dad is an intellectual giant. He's a speaker and is often found around these parts of kind of the Catholic media space, going under the moniker Dr. Italy. So I got to go to the Holy Land. I got to have dinner conversations with Father Mitch Pacwa and Jeff Cavins and Scott Hahn, and ultimately was incredibly deeply formed and passionate for the gospel. I went to seminary. Left seminary with this kind of drive for evangelization, went into youth ministry, and fell madly in love with a woman that I pursued for years, and finally sort of conquered. And we were about to sort of seal the deal and get engaged. And I came down with one of these illnesses that nobody really knew how to diagnose. It turned out later to be sort of like the fungal version of Lyme's disease, but at the time, nobody had any idea what was going on. And it resulted in chronic insomnia, where I could only sleep for a couple hours a night, lots of other sort of weird symptoms, panic attacks at random times, and hallucinogenic symptoms, psychological issues that were just really puzzling. And in the midst of all of that, not only did I feel like I was going crazy, but it became very clear that I couldn't maintain the career that I wanted that I dreamed to have. And this relationship that I was about to sort of seal the deal on and start a family couldn't move forward, had to sort of end that in order to sort of move into taking care of my physical health, and with the hope of perhaps coming back to that if I could figure it out. It took years. I had to watch her get married to a friend. And in the grief and in the loss, I was really confronted with the question of evil. Like, how could God be good and allow such tremendous suffering that seemed to be so meaningless happen to somebody who had sort of devoted his life to God's mission and to his kingdom? And I in that resentment, I lost my faith. I lost my desire to live, and was really contemplating suicide with a very serious kind of attitude. And in the midst of that suffering and trial and tribulation, I was able to write. That was the one thing that I could do for work. And so I had small freelance jobs doing some writing for different Catholic entrepreneurs and people that had been in my network that were kind of throwing me a bone. And one of them dedicated his business to St. Maximilian Kolbe and asked me to write an article about St. Maximilian Kolbe, kind of in the About Us section of his website. And I was certainly not looking for a relationship with a saint at the time. Many people say that the saints sort of choose us and find us, and that was absolutely the case with me and St. Maximilian Kolbe. I started to research him, and a very small detail on the Wikipedia page, of all places, caught my eye that I'd never heard, that really shocked me. And that was that I knew St. Maximilian Kolbe had offered his life to save the life of another man in Auschwitz, and ultimately volunteered to join 9 other men in a starvation bunker to be executed in this unimaginably gross and terrifying suffering, this slow death. He volunteered to take that death on with 9 other men. But I had also known that he had survived for 14 days without food or water, that somehow he had lived so long that the Nazis had to sort of give in and execute him because he was causing so much trouble, singing his songs and praising God and praying through the window. But he also was able to inspire 4 other men with him to endure that sort of heroic, I guess, rebellion of hope, that there were 4 other men who were executed with him. He was the last one to be executed and the last one to die, but there were also 3 other men who were able to survive that long. And from my perspective, as a person who was suffering, who was contemplating suicide, I felt like I could understand what those other men in that cell were going through. I was starving for sleep. They were starving for food, but it was a sort of starvation that gave me a window into the anger, the resentment, the suffering, the sort of edgy sarcasm that really was like, the way that my attitude was shaped by that suffering. And if Kolbe was able to get those men to have the will to live with him for that long, to fight with him, to raise their voices in praise, then there was a miracle of hope that happened inside of that cell, and that his fatherhood and his shepherding of those men was an untold part of the story that I, in some ways, needed to meditate on in order to sort of open a door of hope in my own life. And after that, from that moment on, I felt like Kolbe began to visit me in my cell, in the suffering of my insomnia in my bedroom, and in sort of the mind's eye of my imagination, I began to feel like he was ministering to me and teaching me how to suffer. And the fruit of those meditations became a script for the movie that we're presenting to the world now. So it's a really beautiful act of redemption. And over time, that led to the return of my own heart to the Lord, and to a new attitude of love and of release and of suffering.
Wow. Anthony D'Ambrosio is with us. He's the writer-director of the new film Triumph of the Heart, The Passion of St. Maximilian Kolbe. You can learn more, find out more, support the film over at triumphoftheheart.com. Such a powerful story that Anthony shares with us. So you see kind of the background of all of this film that really begins in the triumph of heart that Anthony himself has gone through, and in meeting and getting to know St. Maximilian Kolbe more, and then the fruitfulness of that overflowing into what is now this incredible film. And it's one thing to have the idea or to even write the film, but to put this all together and for it to come out in this collaborative enterprise so beautiful as it is just amazing. We're going to be back with more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Anthony D'Ambrosio. He is the writer-director of the new film Triumph of the Heart, The Passion of St. Maximilian Kolbe, triumphoftheheart.com. And please make sure to support this film in whatever way you can. If it's in your local area, the very least you can do is show up opening weekend if it's there and be a part of that. And look, you're the one that gets blessed by it. You get to receive the grace and the blessing of being able to see this beautiful film that will be very edifying to you. And so you get that, but then also see what you can do to really prayerfully consider if you can help to open up a new location where others can see this film. Even if you go to the website, triumphoftheheart.com, you can type in your zip code. You can see where it's playing. It might be playing somewhere near you, or there might be plans for that underway. So you could support someone else's effort who has begun somewhere near you, or you can say, look, I'm going to start up another location and see if I can get it going there as well, and try to get an opportunity for even more people to be able to have the experience of seeing this film on the big screen, and to support this film over its opening weekend run on September 12th and 13th. So you want to line this all up now to get it ready to go. Again, you can figure this all out by going to the website, triumphoftheheart.com. We're going to dive in with more in just a moment, but I do want to encourage those, if you are buying or selling a home, there's an easy way to help the Station of the Cross at the same time. Real Estate for Life has 1,400 experienced, morally grounded agents in the U.S. and Canada. You can visit realestateforlife.org to find a Christ-centered, experienced realtor near you. And don't forget to mention the Station of the Cross. All right, back to Triumph of the Heart. Anthony D'Ambrosio is with us, writer and director of this great new film coming out here soon. Again, you want to see this on the big screen. And so, Anthony, you shared some of the personal story leading up to the film. What happened from there as far as it's a difficult endeavor to write a screenplay, one that is a fine blueprint ready to go so that you can really use it to make a film. And then all the collaboration, everybody that is needed to really put a film together and for it to be a successful product at the end, meaning a beautiful work of art, which again, I've seen this on the small screen of my laptop, and it is an absolute masterpiece. So a lot had to go right for all of that to take place. Certainly a lot of graces, but tell us more on this story. How did you write it? How did you direct it? How did you assemble all these great people to be a part of it and to make this such a fantastic success?
Yeah, one of the really special things about this project that's so unique is that we were talking earlier before about how God loves to use the the least of these to exalt his glory. And I'm a first-time filmmaker. I had done quite a few short films and commercials before, so I was certainly seasoned in terms of directing, but never anything to this scale. And my team is all people who are, ex-youth ministers and people who are a part of the church who kind of landed themselves into the creative world as well. And I think that all of us, the original kind of little team that made this happen when we made the first short film version of it, had no conception of how big and important and sort of the gravitas of this story and the mantle that was sort of being placed on us. But when we shot the film, shot the first version of it, we did this 20-minute proof of concept for a young adult group in Dallas. When we showed that, it was like there was an eruption of sort of the subterranean oil of the Holy Spirit that sort of burst out into the room. If anybody's ever been in a place where something like that has happened and they've sensed the presence of God sort of palpably move, we felt that and saw it and knew that there was something bigger in store. And I would say that like the whole DNA of this project has been the small little people, the people who got, nobody knows. Every other movie that you've seen about a saint, generally speaking, has been made by a billionaire in collaboration with a studio. And this is the first time, very much like The Chosen, where something was sort of crowdfunded and crowdsourced from outside of, like from inside of the heart of the church, incubated by people in ministry, people who grew up inside of like the homeschool sort of Catholic ecosystem and have that sort of hustle of the missionary zeal. And the people who got behind it and invested in it were putting $5,000, $10,000 down, not like millions of dollars, right? So this is a very different type of thing. And no one who I talked to thought it was going to be possible to make something really amazing this way. But I think the most amazing thing is just the fact that God has almost this latent force, this army of people who he's been building up in different parts of the world, in Poland, in LA, in Czechoslovakia, and in England. All these different, this constellation of talent that all has a relationship with St. Maximilian Kolbe, that when somebody sort of planted the flag in the ground and said, I'm doing this movie, even though I don't have studio backing, all of these people were prepared to rally to that flag to help make it happen. And so we had people from The Chosen, from Hunger Games, from Doctor Who, from Seventh Heaven, that were all involved in helping make this happen simply because of the passion for Kolbe and for his story. Well,
Anthony D'Ambrosio is with us, triumphoftheheart.com, talking about the film that he wrote and directed, Triumph of the Heart, The Passion of St. Maximilian Kolbe. And some of the promotional text from the website says the following. It says, "We start where the world stops. Most stories about St. Maximilian Kolbe end when he steps forward to take the place of a condemned man in Auschwitz. Our story begins there. In Triumph of the Heart, Kolbe enters the starvation bunker alongside 9 condemned men and fights to forge a brotherhood of hope from their despair, from their suffering and despair." So many wonderful themes that are going on in this film. We can talk about that some in a bit. But first, just the story itself, the plot that we have here, really beginning where most stories about St. Maximilian Kolbe end, with him stepping forward. What are the historical facts that we have from all of this? What were you pulling from? It doesn't seem like we have a ton about what would have happened, or not much at all, actually, I should say, about what would have happened from that point on and the details of what went on inside that bunker. Yet that's really the bulk of the film, so much of it taking place there. And certainly that helps with the budget, but also it really helps with the storytelling as well. Just the setting is so unique, and then all the relationships unfolding, everything that takes place there. But what are the facts versus what you were saying earlier, how most of this really being a meditation of you kind of thinking about what it would have been like, what would have happened there? Can you share more about that with us?
We actually do have quite a few facts. And in the same way that any historian that's reading back at historical records, you can actually piece together quite a bit from small details if you understand the context of those details. So one of the things that we do have is the eyewitness testimony of a character in the movie. You saw this. There's a sort of a janitor type person who was kind of the translator for the Germans. Every morning, the Germans would go into the cell and they would pull out any dead bodies that they would find there. And this man would accompany them. And this man is ultimately the person that carried back like the story of what happened inside of the cell. Real historical character. All of the things that happen while that person is on screen actually is exactly how he described it. And so we understand actually kind of the structure of what happened inside of the cell. The story structure that we're presenting is as it was, meaning that we know that Kolbe started out in the middle of the cell with all of these other men sort of apart from each other. We know that the context was this was the prisoner chamber. This building was the place where all of the terrible and terrifying tortures were sort of being exacted upon prisoners. It was the place where all of the scientific experiments from sort of the Nazi doctor, Dr. Mengele, were happening. And so you know the soundscape of this place, the feeling that these men would have had walking through these halls and hearing the cries and screams of the other people in this their neighboring cells. And then we learn that Kolbe begins singing, that the other men in his cell begin to sing with him, that they begin huddling together. They're now they're able to be depicted as this sort of pietà, with Kolbe in the middle, holding all of them in their starvation and in their suffering. And we get to see the fact that the other prison cells next to them, where all of these tortures were being undergone, began to pick up the Polish hymns that were being sung by Kolbe and his prisoners and companions inside of that cell. And then we also know that ultimately he was executed. They didn't just sort of leave him to rot. And so we know that in some way this was a revolution of hope that was being heard from the window, that the Nazis wanted specifically to silence and censor and destroy any acts of patriotism or religious identity that was not allowed at all in the camp. And that the other prisoners in the camp were beginning to hear these songs. Anybody that was walking by this prison block, instead of hearing the screams of men dying, were beginning to hear the sounds as if it was a cathedral, is what the eyewitnesses describe as. And we also know that eyewitnesses describe that thousands of people were saved. Their lives were saved because of the hope that was given to them by these men in the cell. So what we don't know are specifically the men who were in the cell with him. We don't know which particular prisoners were there, but we do know who was in Auschwitz at the time. We know that it was a political camp before it was a camp used for the Holocaust. So these were prisoners of war. These were people like Kolbe who were influential in media, people who were influential in different parties of the government that were not going to be friendly to the Nazis or deemed to be trouble. And people who perhaps were expected to be a part of the resistance, or the Nazis had suspicion of. So you have this constellation of people who all probably knew of each other, people who knew who Kolbe was, certainly, because he was quite a star at the time. And so you could imagine the ways that those conversations might have happened based on this structure that we do know.
Yeah, you are not disappointing me in any way today, Anthony, just like in watching this film, exceeding my expectations. I mean, what you're describing is everything I would want and more. I mean, as a filmmaker, you're taking the time to understand every fact that is there to find, and to then reasonably flesh it out and say, what would this have been like? And it's just absolutely brilliant when you see it on the screen, what the result is. And it certainly has that sense of this is as it was, even though we don't know everything that would have gone on. It certainly has that sense like this seems very much plausible, like this is very close to how it would have been. And so, just incredible. For whatever reason, by the way, this does help to maybe dispel various ideas you might have that might be off the mark with respect to this story, because, it at least did for me. I'm kind of embarrassed to say it, but for some reason in my mind, in hearing this story all the times I've heard it, I kind of thought of this starvation bunker as being something that was incredibly small, that they would be cramped in, barely able to move, kind of laying on the ground. I don't know why it was in my mind that way, but that's not at all how it actually was. It was a cell. They could move around. It was like a prison cell where they could navigate, and a lot can happen within that space. We're going to be back with more. Stay tuned. The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Anthony D'Ambrosio, writer-director of the new film Triumph of the Heart, triumphoftheheart.com to learn more and support this film. And we don't want to give any spoilers away for sure, but we do want to talk about the film a little bit more, and we've got some time to do it. Very grateful that Anthony is here to talk with us today about this. And I want to ask you a bit about some of your artistic influences in all of this, some of the artistic choices made as well, again, without giving too much away. But, I saw one reviewer likened this film to a Caravaggio. And in trying to describe the film to my wife after I saw it, it's kind of similar to what I found myself saying, sort of stammering, trying to find the right words. I remember saying at one point it was like a painting, in some way, although in film it's like many paintings all put together, and yet there's this beautiful artistic sense. We were talking a little bit before the film about a director I really enjoy his work, Terrence Malick, the Tree of Life, A Hidden Life, Blessed Franz Jägerstätter. But it's not, but it doesn't go off into this sort of avant-garde artistic realm either, but it has the beauty of it all, but still having a real plot, still being able to actually follow a real story, that does stay grounded. And very much like The Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson, with beautiful Catholic imagery that is very tastefully done, just at the right times. Just really, I was blown away by it. But can you share a little bit about some of the artistic influences behind this film?
Yeah, for sure. Terrence Malick is a huge influence for me. He's, of course, this very great poet and master of the spiritual realm in the films that he's made, and I love them. But I also really was inspired by 12 Angry Men, just an old story that is a different age of filmmaking, where you have some people who are just trapped in a room, and the conceit is one person totally disagrees with all the rest of them, and they have to, in order to get out of the room, they have to come to some sort of common agreement, about the guilt or lack thereof of a criminal. And I thought that structure was an amazing structure for the story of St. Maximilian Kolbe, because inside of the cell, he's like the holdout juror. He's the one person that believes in hope, that believes in God, that believes that living is still worth it, even if their death is almost inevitable, and that suffering to stay alive and to sing songs is sort of a meaningless act, or it would seem to be a meaningless act that couldn't do anything to stop the Nazis. But as the story progresses, you see all of these other men sort of come to his side and begin to join him in his rebellion. And I thought that a story like that's just very grounded, intimate, based on relationships, but with all of these sort of spooky and beautiful, surreal sort of things that can come in, because, of course, these men are starving, and the veil between heaven and earth and hell and earth are sort of becoming thinner, the same way anybody who's experienced a silent retreat or a long sort of fast has experienced. And so, we found these sort of different, very highly grounded, relational, dialogue-based, theatrical type sentiments, and this more surreal, poetic, visually beautiful sentiment come together and try to lace them together. A lot of people that I talked to when I was presenting the story to them, the script to them, thought that it would never work. These two are sort of they called it a feathered fish, because these are completely different types of things. But I think it did end up being really majestic in the way that it came together.
Yeah, absolutely worked. And wonderful. And so one thing that I did notice as well that I thought was just quite delightful, wonderful from the viewer's perspective is anybody who knows the story of St. Maximilian Kolbe knows about the two crowns, the crown of martyrdom and the crown of purity, the crown of purity and chastity, and so we know that he chose in his youth both crowns from Our Lady when presented with them. Now the film it doesn't flash back into his life as a young person. We don't see that moment, I don't think. I mean, we certainly don't get it explicitly laid out for us, like this is what happened. We don't get any of that. It sort of treats the viewer as, if you know the story, it gives you, I guess, a little Easter eggs in a certain sense. It gives you these little gifts that if you know that story, then there's moments in the film that are going to be even more meaningful to you. And if you don't know the story, these moments still work. You might wonder, about the full meaning of certain scenes that take place, certain images that occur. But if you know the story, it's so wonderful that you're not, that you're treating the viewer so in such a mature way where you don't have to, everything's not on the nose. You don't have to tell them everything. You can just give them little tastes. And I just thought that worked so well. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about depicting a spiritual reality, I think the worst thing that you can do is try to make it make full logical sense, because that's never how we experience it when we have these moments of surreal, mystical visions or connections to the Lord. They always just stand beyond the sense of understanding. And I think that it was really important for me when treating something like Kolbe's vision as a child of the two crowns, that would feel both scary and beautiful, like mystical in a way that feels attractive and comforting, while also having this edge to it that's almost like slightly terrifying. Because every time that I see in scripture somebody being called by God to a mission, their first reaction is not, oh my gosh, that was the most beautiful experience of my life. It's like, that was the most terrifying experience of my life, like, do not fear. Every angel that shows up says, do not fear before they say anything else. And that's because the power of God breaking through into reality is such a profound experience that it's both of beauty, but perhaps also of the smallness of man, the insignificance of man, the same way that perhaps looking at the stars and beholding the splendor of the universe makes you feel almost terrified with vertigo. And so creating that sort of experience of the mystical felt very important in order to maintain the sense of maturity and the sense of realism that I think was present in reality.
Triumphoftheheart.com. So getting into the themes a bit, I first of all, I love this stuff. If you can't tell, I get very excited about this, very excited to talk to Anthony today, especially after seeing this film and I can't wait to see it on the big screen, because I would say it really is one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. If not, I mean, I don't want to be overcome too much by the emotion of having just seen it a couple days ago. But it has been a couple days. My sense is still, this may be the most beautiful film I've ever seen, to be honest about it. And so, look, I don't know how much of that, again, is just recently seeing it, and we'll see where it goes in the final rankings, but it's up there definitely at the highest mark of any film I've ever seen, if not number one. And I love this stuff for a long time. I went to school for some of this filmmaking, media studies. Filmmaking was my bachelor's back in the day, before I had a big conversion at age 24, and the Lord took me in a different direction. Even finished a master's in fine arts in screenwriting back in the day. And so I love this stuff, and I love the themes. I love what some might call the central question of a film. If there were, I don't know how you look at it, but if there's a central question of this film, Anthony, how would you express it?
It would be, can there be hope when all hope is lost, really? Because for these men, the odds of them getting out of the starvation bunker are infinitesimal. And for Kolbe to sort of be the pastor there saying, your life is still worth living, is it really puts us up against the core kind of pro-life argument that the church sort of makes against the arguments of the world. That in some way, the argument of the world is that if your life is going to be ineffectual, if it's just going to be full of suffering, if there's nothing that you can really do with your life or make out of it, then you should just go ahead and take your own life, right? Or you should take the physician-assisted suicide way out that allows you to have comfort in the end and dignity, or whatever that world would call dignity. And of course, St. Maximilian Kolbe is arguing that life is still worth living, that in whatever suffering, whatever circumstances you're given, that there's still a purpose, a divine purpose and a divine closeness that's available to you. And that drawing close to God, accepting the cross, can unleash a seismic wave of light, even into the darkest of places.
Yes, yeah, and after I saw this film and thinking about it, so many thoughts, so much to think about afterwards. That's one of the great things about a great film. It kind of just unfolds in the coming days as your mind is just really ruminating over many of the moments and things. What did I just see? What did that mean? What was that? And the title of this film, Triumph of the Heart. And I was thinking about these themes, but then it hit me back to the film school days. This title hit me, Triumph of the Will. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's a thing. And then the name hits me, Leni Riefenstahl, the propagandist filmmaker of the Nazis, who was pretty talented as a filmmaker, but used it in a very, very bad way in making these propaganda films. And so was that something that you had thought about? Is that a sort of a play with the title Triumph of the Heart, this old propaganda Nazi film, Triumph of the Will?
Yeah, that was exactly the intention for anybody, again, like a little Easter egg for anybody that was in the know about propaganda at the time. Kolbe made his life's work an act of resistance against the propaganda of the totalitarianism that was kind of coming through Europe at the time, right? Communism, Freemasonry, Zionism, even in some ways as a sort of offshoot of communism, and of course fascism. And so Kolbe making this paper that is going up against these big giants and Goliaths of his age, and then seeing all of them win, and Poland being sort of torn apart, divided between the communists and the fascists. It's like the worst nightmare coming true. And then his life just simply coming to this fine point of a decision to love. And somehow that decision to love and to sacrifice is the thing that ultimately is conquered and has lasted. The Polish identity remembers Kolbe's story as the victory, not the story of Karl Fritsch, who was the commandant at the time that was able to wield all this power over the lives and deaths of all of these Poles in the camp at the time. And so we thought it was this perfect juxtaposition of the Übermensch ideal of the Nazi world and its propaganda, and Kolbe's small, vulnerable Catholic triumph in that cell.
Yeah, incredible. And it had me thinking a bit as well afterward, just this human response, but based on those two different titles, Triumph of the Will, Triumph of the Heart, and the response we get from a saint versus the response we get from someone who is not, and who responds in a way that they think is good, maybe. They think is the right way to go. In the face of powerlessness, I think there's a choice to be made, right? And so I think about Germany post-World War I, this big defeat, and then they've got the boot of the world on top of them with some heavy sanctions and everything that went down there, and this powerlessness. Almost, I wonder if there was a sort of a national sense of, we will not let this happen to us again, right? And this sort of a backlash in the heart to go, we are going to will ourselves to power and make sure this never happens to us again. And it went off the rails versus St. Maximilian Kolbe, in the face of it all, who doesn't will himself to power, but he offers himself in love. And so this is really the call, right? To offer ourselves in love, in union with our Lord Jesus. Welcome back to to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Anthony D'Ambrosio, writer-director of the new film Triumph of the Heart, The Passion of St. Maximilian Kolbe. Support this film, see this film, triumphoftheheart.com. I want to give you time to express whatever else you want to share with us today, Anthony, in just a moment, but I do want to just pick up on what I was talking about, that theme, and have a response from you on this from right before the break. And so just to pick up on it a little bit further, I do wonder if post-World War I Germany would have chosen a different direction, if they would have chosen sort of an offering of love as a people rather than a will to power, a triumph of the heart instead. If they would have went to work building up an authentic civilization of love, what maybe you'd see more in line with what you'd see in Poland, perhaps. But, if it would have gone that way, obviously so much would be so different. And so, but also I think parallel to that in our own time, I kind of think of sort of the feminist movement and the sexual revolution and all of this sort of in the same light as I'm meditating on this, as I'm pondering this, where it's women being abused, women being oppressed, and then this sort of pendulum swings. Instead of an offering of love and building up of a civilization of love and sort of course correcting in a right way, the pendulum swings, and then it's sort of a will to power. We're going to will ourselves to have the power over the men, or to, do various things, power over ourselves in a way that would be inappropriate, or power over others that is inappropriate, power over even to the choice of killing our own children. And now we've got this ongoing daily mass murder of our littlest brothers and sisters by abortion that is going on right now. And we're all desensitized to it. And this is taking place in our nation by the thousands every day, hundreds of thousands around the world every day. And it's going on right now. Is there a message in this film for today that you'd like to speak to?
Yeah, I think that we're living right now in a silent crisis. It's a crisis of hope, a crisis of despair, but it doesn't have the same palpable drama of the time of Kolbe in World War II in the war. The drama of it is happening in complete isolation in people's bedrooms as they lose the power to find meaning and hope in their lives. And we only need to look at the tripling of the suicide rate over the last 5 years, the over medication and climbing rates of depression. This is the most therapized, medicated, and yet most anxious of all generations. And so all we have to do is really look at that and see that we're living in the middle of, in some way, the greatest oppressive, demoralizing spirit that has ever sort of swept across the earth. But it is sweeping across the earth in sort of this small, quiet temptation to sort of extricate yourself from your family because they are toxic, or to kill your own child, or to avoid the opposite sex because they're bad, or, it's all of this like internal, subtle, and yet deeply, deeply divisive psychological software that's being installed like a virus into the every generation of children and youth. And I think what we're trying to do with the film is what I felt Kolbe was doing for me in my suffering, was to give me an antidote to all of that by showing me the compassion of God and giving me this kind, loving exhortation that my life was worth living, that even my suffering was valuable, was being sort of treasured by and beheld by those in heaven who are watching and waiting for me to come and rejoice with them. And I think the presentation of a good father, the presentation of a beautiful heaven on the other side of this savage life, these things are core aspects of who we are and what we believe as Catholics, what we've experienced in priests and good priests who've loved us and good fathers. But so many people have never gotten a taste of what that actually is. They've only gotten these perverted images of these things. And so the presentation of this story, I think, gives us an opportunity to show, no, this is what Catholicism actually really is. This is what it really is about. And if your heart is not like broken open in love and yearning when you're watching this film, like you're made of stone, you're made of rock, solid rock, So that's I guess that's all I would have to say about that.
Yeah, Anthony D'Ambrosio with us, and this film Triumph of the Heart. I would say that I believe this is going to bring a lot of people back to their senses, but they need to see it first. They're going to be brought back to their senses through beauty, through the beauty that is there, the human beauty that is alive in the person that is expressed there in St. Maximilian Kolbe on the screen, the beauty of the film, the beauty of the story, the beauty ultimately of our Lord Jesus and Our Lady, who have done everything for us and are pouring out the graces, and we need to open our hearts to receive these graces, to love them back, and to do our part in building up a civilization of love in our time. So it's all right before us. We can do a great thing by participating in this great work that Anthony D'Ambrosio has gotten going here, writer and director of Triumph of the Heart. To support this film, triumphoftheheart.com is where to do it. A few minutes left to go. Anthony, what else do you want to share with us today?
Yeah, just I guess if there's anybody here who is listening, who resonates with the struggle to hope, who resonates with the grief and the suffering that I've been talking about, I guess just a direct message to you that you're loved, that you're not alone, that you and your suffering is being remembered, is being seen, is being witnessed by heaven, and that it will be worth it, that you should endure, carry that cross, and seek in the midst of that those who suffered with you, like Maximilian Kolbe, the stories of the saints who have entered into willingly that cross and have shown you how to bear it, and they will give you strength. I can promise you that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that conversion, that ongoing conversion, it really is just turning our gaze back to the one who is always gazing upon us in love, turning our hearts back to the one whose heart is broken open and poured out for us. Jesus is real. His Catholic Church is real. This is all real. Our Lady is real. St. Maximilian Kolbe is real. And so this is what reality is. And we need to acknowledge that, face it, and enter into it. And if you've never initially really begun this life of faith, what are you waiting for? It's time. Dive in. Come on back to the Catholic faith, or come for the first time. And for all of us, we've got more to go. So we can all do better. So confession, the Holy Eucharist in a state of grace. Let's keep going by God's grace, that life of daily prayer. It's all there right before us. Anthony, anything more? We want to make sure to really drill down on how to support this film. Again, triumphoftheheart.com is where to go. If we buy out a theater, anything more you want to say on that that could be helpful to encourage us to do so?
Yeah, the way that people are used to buying tickets for the movies is waiting until the week of. And we don't have that luxury. And I think this is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly important for everybody to know, is that this movie will not come to the screens. And if it does not come to the screens, then it will not come to all of the streaming platforms that that movies go to afterwards, if we do not show up on opening weekend. But particularly if we do not buy tickets now, if we don't go ahead and just sort of look in our zip codes for any other screening that's happening there, or start our own, then it simply will be missed. So this is kind of a moment. It's a make or break. We've sort of opened it up for all of you grassroots, mom and dad, men's groups, women's groups, to be able to take on the responsibility of starting a screening, getting everybody in your parish rallied around that, selling the tickets so that we can go to the theaters with cash in hand and say, we want to make sure that this movie gets seen. You're not going to be able to resist our ability to bring that to you right now. So please help us by going ahead and making a decision to buy a ticket now, sharing with your friends now, not waiting until the last minute to make your decision to come.
Yes, the time to participate in this good work is right now. triumphoftheheart.com. Support this film. Whatever you can do, triumphoftheheart.com. We've got to support this film and make sure that as many can see this film as possible. Anthony D'Ambrosio, thank you so much. What a blessing. Greatly appreciate you. Everybody pray for the film, and Anthony as well. God bless you all.